So another principle that's very important in every aspect of our lives is to recognize the principle of sur meirav aseh tov. In order to get well, one can't just say, well, what pill can I take to get rid of this? One has to first recognize, what am I doing wrong? What am I eating wrong? What am I ingesting wrong? Am I in a toxic environment? And I can't get well, I can't heal and nurture myself unless I've first eliminated those things that are toxifying and poisoning myself. So the principle of sur meirav aseh tov is incredibly important. And I'll always, when I'm treating a patient, I'll look and see what their diet is. And we'll see, perhaps they're not even aware of it. When you eat something, when one eats something, will they get stomach gurgling? Will they start having itching? Will they start having palpitations, rapid heartbeat, brain fog, skin rash? All of these are messages from Hashem, you're doing something wrong. And should my approach be, well, I just have to live with that, I'll just take something to treat it? No. The approach of Jewish medicine is, let's listen to what's off. Now, one of the best ways to do that, and this is a gift that Hashem taught me, is by checking the pulses. When I studied Chinese medicine, I learned that there are 6 basic pulses, 3 in each hand. On the right hand, the correspondences are the adrenals, the digestive pulse, the digestive tract, and the lungs. And on the left side, the heart, the liver, and the kidneys. And it's interesting, Hashem taught me that if one is not certain as to whether a food is good for one or not, if a person will eat that food or even hold the food in their hands and they check the digestive pulse, if it is a toxic food, the pulse will become irregular, it'll become rapid, it'll be almost like a child that's flailing in the water. Because the body is talking to the person and saying, this is bad for you. How is it showing? Many, many different ways. As we said, the different symptoms that show that are the signs from Hashem that this is bad for our bodies. And Hashem is speaking to us through the pulse. That's perhaps another explanation of the pasuk in Shir Shirim, Kol Dodi Dofek, that the voice of my beloved is in the pulse. Hashem is speaking to us in our pulses. Do we pay attention? Not necessarily.
So I know that there isn't one given diet that's good for anybody, for everybody. But give us some pointers of what should we be consuming and what should we be avoiding generally?
Okay. So first of all is bio-individuality. That's very important to understand. And then what's good for you may not be good for me. But there are essentially 10 basic foods that universally are harmful. And those I'll tell you.
Am I ready for this? Wait a minute. Okay, go ahead.
There is no benefit to them at all for anyone. And the body will be reactive. Before I tell you why they're not good, I will tell you that the reactivity is a term that has to do with a fire. What is the term? Inflammation.
Yeah.
The flame inside of the body comes from 4 essential cardinal signs: redness, heat, swelling, and pain. And it can show you anywhere in the body. And when there is inflammation, it means that the body is killing itself. And it's making itself vulnerable to disease. And bacteria and viruses and diseases, more often than not, are relatively harmless substances that are breaking down pain, toxic, ill tissue. And so when we make our tissue strong, those bacteria are no longer able to harm us in any way, shape, or form. So what are these reactive foods? What are these inflammatory foods? And they are inflammatory. And you can tell because the pulse gets faster when you eat them. Sugar, Number 2, dairy. Number 3, wheat. Not grains, not gluten, wheat. Because the wheat we have today is not the wheat that our grandparents had. It's been genetically modified, it's been hybridized, and it's very reactive. That's another discussion. But wheat is very, very, very reactive. Number 4, corn. Number 5, soy. Number 6, peanuts. Number 7, anything that is addictive. Anything that puts us in fight or flight. Anything that if I have it, whether it's chocolate or whether it's coffee or whether it's cigarettes, that addictive substance is going to cause inflammation to our adrenal glands. Number 7, canola oil. Canola is a genetically modified oil which comes from the prairies of Manitoba, thus Canada. Canola, it's the oil of Canada. It's a frankenfood. It is a non-real food, and there's no one who does well with it. That's number 7. Number 8, eggs that are not free range, eggs that are raised in a lul, in a closed environment, where they're fed antibiotics and hormones and pesticides. Those eggs are not good for anyone. Number 9 is any foods that you can't pronounce, any chemicals. It's interesting, the gematria of Maaseh Yedei Adam is the same gematria as machalot, illnesses.
Wow.
That which is a laboratory.
Anything processed.
Anything processed, that's correct. From the pulses, there may be other foods that are specific to the person.
So those are general avoidance.
That's right.
What about on the positive side? What are the general do's?
Get to sleep early.
That's the most important one. Get to sleep early.
I read something fantastic a couple of weeks ago in a sefer that I'm studying. He says that the greatest ill to civilization was the creation of the light bulb of Thomas Edison.
Ah, yes, I think I heard that.
We live in a world where we are supposed to go to bed at dusk and wake up at dawn. And we're supposed to be breathing in fresh air and sunlight. And instead, we live, since the time of the Industrial Revolution, we are poisoning ourselves. And rather than looking at eating as an opportunity to connect to Hashem, as a rendezvous in space and time, we're looking at it as a necessary evil. When one eats, how should one eat? Am I eating to give myself pleasure? Or am I eating this pleasurable food to recognize that Hashem has given me this gift and I want to feel His pleasure by eating it?
Nice. And hence the brachot before and after.
And those are reminders. They're not words to be spit out, but they're opportunities to connect and to bind and become one.
And what about the number of chews? Any feedback for how many times we should chew?
Well, first of all, the more one chews, the easier it is for the message to get from the digestive tract to the brain. And the more one chews, the more amylase, the digestive enzymes which break down carbohydrates, are released in the saliva. So that's very beneficial. But the truth is, if one is not multitasking when one is eating, when one is eating one's food and recognizing that I'm not only eating this food, but I'm also eating the life force that Hashem put in that food. Ki lo al lechem levado yichya adam, ki motzi pi Hashem yichya adam. That it's not by bread alone that a person lives, but rather the sparks that Hashem has placed in the food that's given this living essence to this food that makes it alive. And my job, as I'm eating it, is to recognize the godliness in this food and thanking Hashem for that. And asking Hashem to feed the different parts of my body that need what I'm getting from this food.
For a Jew, is there any benefit in eating a non-kosher food, or is it equivalent to eating nothing?
No. There is a physical benefit in that we are providing nutrition, but to everything that there is in Kedusha, there is to Tuma as well. Every side of Malchut, the Shemaya, there is also Malchut, the Sitra Achra. And so one is in essence feeding that connection, that spiritual connection to the other side. That again is the same idea as when we spoke about vacuums. So you might just think I'm eating nothing. No, you're eating worse than nothing because you're creating an emptiness, and that emptiness is making you, as it were, a zombie.
Right.
And that's why a person will come along and say, I'm entitled to eat that dessert. I'm entitled to have that pie. I'm entitled to have that cigarette. I deserve it. It's my right. And all they're doing is being pulled into the quicksand deeper and deeper and deeper.
Right. Very good. I had an interview with Avram Dahan last week, and he was saying that just because it's kosher doesn't mean it's good for you either. You can end up eating things that are kosher but are terrible for you, in the same way that you're saying through the industrialization of food. Do you agree with that?
100%. It's so important that we look at eating as the most spiritual activity that a person can be involved in. The two most incredible historical events, three most important historical events occurred with food. Adam and Chava, Birchas Yitzchak, when Yitzchak gave the bracha to Yaakov, and Matan Torah.
Where's the food in Matan Torah?
It says, Vayechesu et Elokim, Vayochlu v'yishtu.
Yeah, but I thought that was a negative thing. They sat and ate in front of the Kedusha.
The problem was they stared, but it was a very high moment. It was an incredibly high moment. And as a matter of fact, the Rebbe of Zusha brings down that when a person is confronted with the Midat Hadin, Vayechazu et Elokim, that eating and drinking the Kedusha is the antidote. V'yochlu v'yishtu. That's how there was a famous story where the Rebbe of Pinchas of Koretz was a moel, and the baby didn't stop bleeding. And Reb Zusha walks in and says, "Quick, wash the Suda." And he explained, this is why. Vayechazu et Elokim, when you see the Midat Hadin, Vayochlu v'yishtu, and immediately the bleeding stopped.
Wow, interesting.
So eating is the greatest opportunity to bring godliness in the world. The greatest. And by the same token, that's why so many people fall with it.
Right.
Because a Jew is never neutral. There's either Kedusha or there's Tuma.
There's no neutral.
And what is the steering wheel that directs us either to Gan Eden or Gehenna? The heart. L'chaven et libo.
We have the schut to have a heart that's functioning the right way and pointing us in the right direction.
That's right.
Thank you.